Get off my porch, or the next sound you hear will be your own bones cracking. Clara Morgan didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The man on her porch, one of Jeremiah Knox's, froze with his boots still lifted, as if unsure whether the creak beneath his heel would count as a challenge. The other two leaned against the post rail, chewing tobacco like it was a leisure call. One of them chuckled, spat a dark stream into the dust, and flicked the brim of his hat. "We're just delivering a message, miss," he said. "Ain't no need to go reaching for iron." Her hand stayed steady on the shotgun resting against her hip. The wood of the stock had splinters from use. The barrels, freshly oiled, gleamed like twin sermons. "This land ain't for sale," she said. "You can ride back to your boss and tell him Dry Creek still has bite." The third man shifted. Young, nervous, eyes bouncing from the scorched horizon to Clara's finger near the trigger. "Look, lady, it's just business. Knox says you're holding up a deal. We're not looking to—" The gun fired. Not at him, at the bucket beside the post. It exploded into splinters, water soaking into the dry porch wood like blood on bandage. The young one cursed and stumbled backward off the steps, landing hard in the dust. The other two drew, too slow. Clara's second barrel clicked into place, raised without tremor. "Try it," she said, voice calm as dusk. No one moved. From behind them, wind kicked up dust over the broken fence line. A hawk wheeled above the canyon's edge. The silence pressed close, thick as judgment. The older one, greasy with a scar under his left eye, lowered his pistol. He nudged the kid up by the collar. "Come on," he muttered. "She's made her answer clear." They mounted their horses without another word. As they turned to ride, Clara called after them. "Let him know I said it to his face if he's man enough to come ask." The only reply was hooves pounding across the hard pan, fading east. She stood still for a long moment, watching the dust rise behind them. Then, slowly, she broke the shotgun open and reloaded. Her hand didn't shake. Behind her, the screen door creaked open. A dog, old, half-blind, stepped out and laid down beside her boots like it had seen all this before. Maybe it had. From across the hills, over Red Coyote Ridge, a figure on horseback paused. The gelding reared, nostrils flaring, eyes wide toward the ridge. Elias Kane dropped the reins and hit the dirt running, rifle already in hand. He dropped to a knee behind a shale outcrop, steadying the long iron against stone. Below, three riders crept across the canyon mouth, moving too careful to be lost travelers. One of them paused, lifted binoculars. They weren't looking for game. They were scouting a path toward Clara Morgan's ranch. Elias watched in silence. The breeze tugged his duster and carried the scent of creosote and horse sweat. The sun cut deep shadows down the ravine. He adjusted the scope. The man in the lead, a big bastard with red suspenders and a Colt on each hip, had a letter in his saddlebag. Legal papers. He didn't need to read M to know they weren't friendly. Elias didn't shoot. Not yet. Instead, he slid back down the slope, boots whispering against dry gravel. He moved like smoke, quiet and without trail. At the base of the ridge, his horse waited, still skittish. It knew when death was sniffing the air. He mounted, riding hard and low along the bluff line. The sun burned the canyon walls gold and red, like the land itself was bleeding out light. He passed the old pine where Sergeant Kersey had died. Didn't look at it. Didn't think about it. Not until he reached the old burnout chapel at Crowsnout Bend. There, he dismounted, untied a wrapped bundle from his saddlebag, set it on the altar stone. Inside, an oilcloth, a folded cavalry pin, and a locket that hadn't opened in 16 years. He stared at it for a long while, then turned away. By nightfall, Elias was back on his ridge, watching Clara's ranch from a distance. The light in her kitchen flickered steady. She was still there, still standing. A coyote cried somewhere to the north. He rolled his shoulders, and the weight of memory settled like iron across his back. Knox was making his move, which meant Elias would have to break his vow. A fire sparked behind him, small, tight, and well-tended. It was the first fire he'd lit in over a decade. The horses shifted nearby, sensing something had changed. Maybe it was in the air. Maybe it was in him. Boots hit the dust. 15 of them, spurs jangling like funeral bells. The town of Dry Creek held its breath. Clara Morgan stood at the edge of her porch, shotgun braced against her hip. She didn't blink, didn't twitch. The morning sun baked the street in gold and sweat. Along the boardwalk, townsfolk peered from windows and saloon doors, watching, waiting, praying. Jeremiah Knox stepped forward. Suit clean, hat cleaner, a folded paper in one gloved hand. Final offer, he said, voice smooth as a blade. You sign, you ride. You don't, well. He gave a nod. Men spread out behind him like vultures circling carrion. Clara didn't look at the paper. Instead, she turned to the crowd. Eyes sharp, voice clear. Let them watch. I'm not scared. Gasps. Murmurs. A baby cried somewhere. The sheriff leaned against a post, doing nothing. Knox sighed, disappointed. Pity. The man to his right moved first, hand going to his holster. Clara fired. The first shot caught him in the shoulder. The second missed, on purpose. The buckshot kicked up dust near another's boots. Chaos snapped like a dry branch. Knox's men drew, but she was already moving, slipping behind the well post, reloading fast. Bullets tore through porch rail and window frame. A scream echoed from the livery. Someone ducked behind a trough. And then, crack! A rifle shot split the air from high above the saloon roofs. One of Knox's men dropped like a felled tree, hat still spinning in the dirt. Another shot, then another. They came from the ridge. Someone had them in their sights. Panic took hold. Clara stepped into the open again, calm as a hanging judge. Smoke drifted from her barrel. Her hat was gone. Blood lined her cheek, but it wasn't hers. A man charged her from the flank. She sidestepped, swung the butt of her shotgun into his throat, and he collapsed, wheezing. Behind her, the final three turned to run. One fell to a rifle's reach. The others made it to their horses, galloping like devils, nipped their heels. Knox stood alone, face pale, paper still in hand. You think this is over? He spat. You'll swing for this. Clara walked toward him, step by step. Eyes locked, dust curling around her boots like smoke. You come onto my land with guns and threats, she said. And now you want mercy? He opened his mouth, but her stare stopped him cold. She stopped just inches away. You tell whoever sent you, she said, voice low, steady. That dry creek isn't for sale. Not to cowards. Not to kings. Behind her, the rifle cracked once more. This time, just into the sky. Smoke curled from a last spent shell as silence returned to Dry Creek. Clara stood in the middle of the road, sleeves torn, blood drying on her temple. Her shotgun hung loose in one hand. Knox lay unconscious at her feet, face buried in grit and shame. The townsfolk crept out one by one, hats in hand, eyes wide, words caught in throats. No one dared speak first. From the ridge, a lone rider descended, slow and quiet. Elias Kane. He dismounted at the edge of town and walked the rest of the way in. Dust coated his duster, rifle still slung over one shoulder. He moved like a man returning to a grave he never meant to see again. Clara turned toward him. Neither spoke. Not at first. He stopped 3 paces away, reached into his coat, drew something wrapped in leather, and held it out. She took it with steady hands, unwrapped it slowly. Inside, a cavalry pin, bent, blood-stained. Her fingers trembled. You kept it, she whispered. His voice came like wind scraping rock, barely there. But it came. I was too late. He died calling your name. Clara's eyes filled, but not a single tear fell. She looked at the pin, then at him. You disappeared. I broke, he said. The weight of years sat heavy between them, full of ghosts and bullets. She opened the locket on her chain. Inside, a small photo of 3. Her husband, and Elias, in uniform, younger, unscarred. I forgave you a long time ago, she said. I never did. They stood in the dust, alone but understood. The sheriff stepped forward finally, mouth half open, unsure if law still held weight here. Clara turned to him. You didn't lift a finger. He looked down, ashamed, said nothing, walked away. Elias looked toward the horizon, where Knox's riders had vanished into nothing. He'll send more. I hope he does. He nodded once. You'll need someone to watch the ridge. She smirked. Thought you liked the quiet. I did. She turned, walked back toward her porch, stopped on the steps, looked back once. You coming? He didn't answer, but he followed.